So we want to look at 10 and 11 here from 19b. So number 10, here's the illustration they gave us. And it says these two curves are y equals sine of x and y equals sine of 2x. So first thing first here, which one is which? Okay.
Sine is first.
Sine is which one?
Sine of x is first one, the smallest one.
The smaller one?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Sine x.
Or why do you say that?
Because b is like the whole unit.
Okay. B would affect the period. Here B is 1, here B is 2, right? Okay, what is the usual period of a sine curve?
Is the period for just the one
1
arch?
period.
I think it's 5 arch.
The period, remember the period is from start to finish. So for C1 it's from 0 to pi. For C2 it's from 0 to 2 pi, right?
Yeah.
So what's our usual period for the sine curve?
2 pi.
2 pi. All right, so this one right here is the sine of x. C1 is the sine of 2x. Okay? Now that's important because if we don't do that right, remember we have to subtract the top one minus the bottom one. And while we can see, which one is above the other in the two regions that they gave us here, it's, you're going to end up getting the wrong areas if you don't identify which curve is which properly, okay? So we've done part A here. Now, find algebraically the coordinates of A. All right, so we need to figure out the intersection here. If you think about this problem, okay, let's think about this. What we're going to do is we're going to take the integral, and we're going to actually need to find two different integrals because over here, the sine of 2x is on top, all right? The sine of 2x is on top here. However, from a to pi, sine of x is on top, all right? So as we're thinking about this, we need to take the integral from 0 to whatever the x-coordinate of A is. And in that interval, we're going to have sine of 2x minus sine of x. But then we need to add the other area to it. This one is going to be the integral from wherever A is to that pi. But in that interval, sine of x is on top. So it's sine of x minus sine of 2x. Okay? Now, if we were trying to find this area, we'd kind of be stuck at this point until we finish, or until we do part B here. Find algebraically the coordinates of A. So we need to find intersection points. So we need to figure out when sine of x equals sine of 2x. Does anyone have an idea of how we could solve this one? It says algebraically, so we can't use the calculator.
Use the identity.
What identity? That's correct.
Sine of 2x.
Very good. Do you guys remember what sine of 2x equals?
We were in class.
Do you guys know what sine of 2x equals? Do you remember that
1
one?
over 2 sine of 2x.
No?
Oh, cosine.
Oh, you're talking about like the integral? Just what the identity, sorry. I blindsided you. You just walked in.
Sine times cosine.
You're almost, that's almost right. Sine times cosine
Plus cosine.
times 2. 2 sine cosine. Well, that's good, you got most of it. All right, so sine of 2x is 2 times the sine times the cosine. And guys, that's necessary here because we can't solve this as long as our trig functions have different angles in here. Okay? But now that we have this, we can get it equal to 0. So we have 2 sine x cosine x minus sine x. And now we can factor. If we factor out a sine of x, we get 2 cosine x minus 1. Okay? So that means either sine is 0 or cosine is a half. And sine is 0 where?
2 pi, pi, 3 pi,
Yeah.
4 pi.
0, pi, 2 pi. So actually, we got the 0 and the pi that we already knew, here and here. Okay? So now cosine is a half. Where does cosine equal 1/2? What is it? Pi over 3. Okay? Pi over 3. And technically also it's positive in the fourth quadrant, so that would be 5 pi over 3, but that's past where we want to look at. We're just going up to pi, so we don't need that one. So this right here is going to be that value, the x-coordinate of A that we needed here, okay? So we can put in pi over 3, and here we can put in pi over 3. Now we can do our integrals. Okay? Does everyone get how we've set this up there? Okay. So, what's the integral of sine of 2x?
X times 1/2.
Okay.
Negative cosine x.
There we go. We need the 2x, but we have to take the integral of sine, which would be a negative cosine of 2x. So good, we got the 1/2 because we have this linear function inside the sine. All right? So now it's minus, the integral of sine is negative cosine. So minus a negative cosine is plus cosine x. Now this, we have to integrate from 0 to pi over 3. Okay? But that's only part of it. We also need to add to that the second part. All right? Now the nice thing is we already know the integrals, they're just in a different order here. So integral of sine is negative cosine. And this is going to be plus 1/2 cosine 2x. And that is evaluated from pi over 3 up to pi. Okay? So at this point, all we have to do is push that down. At this point, all we have to do is use our fundamental theorem of calculus. So we have negative 1/2. What's the cosine of 2 pi over 3? That's going to be negative 1/2. Yeah. So negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 is a positive 1/4 plus cosine of pi over 3 is 1/2. Okay. Yeah. So we have 1/4 plus 1/2 plus, minus. We got to evaluate it at 0 as well. Okay, so minus, it's going to be a negative 1/2 what's the cosine of 0?
1.
Yep. Plus the cosine of 0. So it's minus a negative 1/2 times 1, so negative 1/2 plus 1. Okay? So we have 1/4 plus 1/2 minus 1/2. Okay?
Wait, isn't it just 1/2 negative? Second.
This is negative 1/2 plus 1, because cosine of 0 is 1. So that by itself equals a half. Positive 1/2 in the parentheses. Then we subtract it. So that's why it's negative 1/2. Okay. All right, so that all is just this first integral. Now we have to also figure out what the second half of this is. Let me move this stuff out of the way a little bit. There we go. Sorry. Save it up here. Okay, so all right, so now we have plus this cosine part. All right, so first of all, we're evaluating it at pi over 3, so we have a negative cosine of pi over 3 plus 1/2 cosine of 2 pi over 3 minus a negative cosine of pi plus 1/2 cosine of 2 pi. So, we already said cosine of pi over 3 is a half, so this is minus 1/2. Cosine of 2 pi over 3 is negative 1/2, so that's going to be 1/2 times negative 1/2. So that's a negative 1/4 minus, what's cosine of pi? Negative 1, so negative negative 1 is positive 1. What's cosine of 2 pi?
1.
1.